Welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. This is the last quilting tutorial video in our quilting series for free motion quilting. That was a lot of quiltings in one small situation. So we're going to be finishing up our segment on wavy lines today. We're going to do some wavy ribbons, which I like to do on triangle blocks, things like log cabins where you can split them in half. And it is really kind of fun. It creates kind of a starburst effect. It's really, really neat. And it uses very simple wavy lines that just kind of fan out. So it's really kind of fun. And that's pretty much what this whole series is about. If you're just catching this video, we have a whole bunch of videos before this one that take 4 basic quilting stitches. We're going to get the muscle memory down using full line stencils, which is a great way to transfer your lines onto your block and then be able to get that muscle memory down. And then we do subsequent videos that show you how to take that initial design and customize it to do true free motion quilting that really can give you an infinite number of possibilities for your next quilt and really make you a fabulous quilter. The entire course is free for you guys, but we do have kits available and we would love it if you got one. Help support us, helps us bring you new videos like this one. We have 4 different colorways of solid fabrics. It looks very bright and bold and graphic, and it also will make your quilting the star of the show and give you something to do with all the samples from the class, so that way it's not just a pile that you don't really know what to do with. And we also have those stencils that you can get if you do want to use your own fabric, but you want to be able to get that muscle memory down. It's a great place to start. And then make sure you grab the pattern, which includes instructions both for the quilt to go method if you're using it on your long arm, or to put your whole top together so you can load it on your long arm and go. And each video also is going to have some video of me doing the same designs on the long arm, and that way you guys can really see it and know for sure, like no matter what you're working on, what you need to know in order to be able to do it. All right, like always, we're going to start by sketching. All right, we're going to pretend that this is just a basic half square triangle quilt block, like it's giant. But I'll often do this on log cabins. I'm sure I'll show you one when we get to the show and tell video next where I've done this. Now, what's important to know here is where your center is, because we want to be working to the center. So we're going to start in our center. We're going to do a wavy line out to hit a point, and then we're going to do a wavy line back. And then we're going to kind of come out again and do a wavy line back. And we're just going to kind of keep doing this, and it kind of creates like this fern-like effect. You kind of want to know where your center is. If you want to like do a little mark up the center, so that way you can sort of turn it. And then when you hit that center part, you don't have to come all the way like back down to here, because that's going to give you a lot of really dense thread work that you might not be great. And so when you come up to the top here, you can just come in, and wherever you have your line of stitching, you can just pause. And then we're going to try and create the same thing coming back out, just filling in that half and trying to match as best you can with the same density as you had on the other side. And this is just really, really fun. It kind of creates this curvy, wavy bit, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side, and it just looks so cool. And I love it. I love it for filling in backgrounds or block fillers. It just is really fun. It is like, it creates a feather-like look without the same difficulty as the feather. So that is always a good thing in my book. All right, let's do it with needle and thread. All right, so I've already got my line stitched across. We're going to pretend that this is our block half. And then I also mark the center. I just line my ruler from side to side. And I'm just going to go ahead and like take that line up. It doesn't have to be anything like super careful. Just, you know, if you're going to have a hard time visualizing where that is, it's probably a good idea to just lightly mark that so you can see where you're going. And you have just a guide. That's all it needs to be, is a guide. It doesn't need to be super perfect. Mine is not, because I did not use a ruler to mark it. So I'm going to start again in that center. We're just going to work our way out, kind of coming up, and then we'll do one up the top and work our way down, and we'll work each half independently, but since we're always coming back to center, when we're done, we're going to be able to flip into the other side. Let's get sewing. All right, so just like the last one, I'm going to go ahead and drop my needle right in the center there and bring my bobbin thread up to the top. All right, now I'm just going to stitch in place a couple of times here to lock those threads in place so I can just clip these threads later. All right, now we're gonna just start working our way out to the side of the block. Now keep in mind, if you're doing this as quilt as you go, you are going to have a seam allowance in this. So you wanna stop just shy of the edge. And I have my sewing machine set up really fast, and when I wound my bobbin, we don't want that. So we're just doing a nice smooth wavy line out. Got a point about a 1/4 inch away from the edge. Make our way back. Now we're going to come up a little bit higher on this one. Make our way back. Same deal, a little bit higher, out and back. See, I'm starting to curve in some because I really don't want to cross that center. Kind of starting to get a spine there where I'm not having to go all the way down to that center anymore, but I am making sure that I am staying to the center, so it looks good. So I'm not going all the way there, I'm just going to wherever the last little bit is to connect it. That way we don't have too much thread buildup. All right, we're getting up to that center here. This is the one where I'm just going to cross over. All right, so I've hit my center. I'm done with all of this side. So now everything I do is going to mirror coming over here. I'm going to try to kind of end at about the same point so I can keep the same scale, but I'm not like married to it. It doesn't have to be like exactly on. All right, now you could not do this if it was a whole block, but since it's not, we can just flip it around and do everything again on the other side. So on the last one, I had a hard time creating like this going up swoop by coming down this way. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to travel down the spine that's kind of been created. And then I can work from the outside up again. Now that I have filled in the rest of my side, I'm just going to travel down that spine one more time to the center so that I can end where I started. All right, I'm going to stitch in place a couple times. That'll lock those threads in so they won't ever come out. All right, so here is what the finished block looks like. It is absolutely fabulous. I love it. And it's not hard at all. We just have wavy lines. We're gonna start in the center, we're gonna do wavy line out and back in, and we're eventually gonna kind of curve down, have that spine. It is a really cool look. If you saw this on a quilt, you would think that is absolutely fantastic and that person is super talented, but you know that when you break it down, it is not bad at all. This was not hard. This was just knowing where you're going, and that's where that sketching first always helps, because you can plan your path, you can kind of figure out what works best. Sometimes you got to adjust, like when I realized that it would work better as I was quilting, that when I just went back down, like I came all the way up here and then I went back down, that I didn't have the same like curve in here. So I made an adjustment and I went all the way out and up here, came back down the sides, and then worked my way back. And that worked a whole lot better in order to create that curve in and have it be more symmetrical. So these are totally things that you can accomplish and that you can do. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this series. Up next, we're going to do a little show and tell where I show you how I've used wavy lines, and it's a lot. I love this stitch. It's so versatile. You can dress it up and dress it down as much as you like. And then we're going to do a video on how to join all your quilt as you go blocks to complete your quilt top. So make sure you stay tuned for that if you are doing the domestic version. And if you're doing the long arm version, I think we're going to add one more video at the end where we're going to just compare and contrast. And we're going to take a look at the blocks side by side to what they look like from the domestic versus what it's like on the long arm, where I'm definitely more comfortable because I spent a lot more of my time quilting on the long arm. And if you're quilting on the domestic, don't worry. That doesn't mean that you can't get to the point of where I'm at on the long arm. It just means that I spent like the last, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years quilting on a long arm primarily. Before I bought one, I rented time on one pretty frequently. And then I got one when I was working on my very first quilting book, Simple Quilts for the Modern Home. And so if you don't have access to that, that doesn't mean that you can't get to a good point. Like this, I consider to be very good. I'm very happy with how this has turned out. I just know that I'm better on the long arm, but it's because I don't work on my sit-down sewing machine really unless I'm filming a video for you guys. So for you guys working at home, it's practice makes perfect. We said at the beginning of this series, you are going to be better off if you do one of these a day as you're working out on doing this series than if you try to cram it all in at once to one big giant session. Even if you can do it a couple of times a week, maybe you got a night a week in the middle of the week and you got a weekend day, and you can split things up between that, and you can sit and work and practice on your pieces, practice your sketching in between. That's going to make you a better quilter than if you try to just cram it all into one day and then you're like, I can't do it. Well, it's because you got to practice and you need to be consistent, both in your sketching and in your practicing. So feel free to go back over this course and practice those as many times as you need to. Make a big quilt. Our instructions were just for a small one, but you can practice this as many times as you need and end up with a king or queen sized big version of this with all the samples that you've made, and you can just see your progression as a quilter. I think that would be a really, really cool quilt to show like your first blocks to where you were at the end if you did this for a king size quilt. I think that would be amazing. It would be so cool. That would be like 100 of these blocks, and it would just look so cool to see where you were at the beginning to where you're at the end. If any of you do that, make sure you tag me on the socials. We're at Quilt Addicts Anonymous on Instagram, on TikTok. Send me an email, Stephanie@quiltaddictsanonymous.com. I would love to see how your quilts are turning out as you're following along with this series. All right, so let's come back in a day to take a look for a little show and tell. Then we'll get all these guys pieced together. All right, until next time, happy quilting.